Welcome to the arrivals of leg 3 of the Ocean Race Europe, where the VO65s, having already finished, they now give way to the IMOCA 60s. And first place has already gone to offshore team Germany, and the battle for second place is being waged on the water at the moment. And the big story as we start making our way from the Italian coastline out to the finish line is, well, you can see the position of the boats as they are coming in, and it is Linked Out at the moment that is leading 11th Hour Racing Team into the finish, and the lead is relatively healthy. As we pass over and head towards the finish line, it's worth noting just how patchy the breeze is, and we saw a lot of the finishes ahead, offshore team Germany as well as all the VO65s, fall foul of those light wind patches just at the finish line. So 11th Hour Racing are, well, a decent way behind, about a mile and a half behind Linked Out, the boat in the middle of your picture at the moment, sailing to the start line just to the left-hand side of your screen. But with a mile, that is certainly a distance that might evaporate pretty quickly if Linked Out do sail into what looks to be a rather large wind bubble just waiting for them off the line. There is the boat right now, and this is the boat that has really turned their fortunes around in this leg. It wasn't that long ago when they were in last place in the IMOCA 60s. In fact, going into the evening yesterday as the sun went down, they were not looking very pretty at all and elected to stay offshore. And, well, just look at them now in second place, having sailed around Bureau Valet, around Coram, and then taking it toe-to-toe to 11th Hour Racing. And in a drag race, just sailing straight past the American team and coming into the line now with what remains of the breeze on the race course. So the big code 0 up, the breeze as this boat has approached the line, having tickled to the right-hand side, putting them more and more onto a reach, making it easier for them to lay the finish line, but potentially making the wind in their sails a little bit softer. And this is the view from on board. So Thomas Riant, the skipper, in the middle of the picture, double-checking that they're not going to do anything silly at this point and throw it away. With the rest of the crew, it looks to be up on the bow, keeping the weight forward. And there we can see the big foils out on this boat. Light winds, not really the conditions for foiling, but it doesn't seem to have slowed this boat down too much. This has been one of the, what appears to be one of the more well-rounded foiling boats, and sailing along in the final offshore leg here of the Ocean Race Europe, where light winds have pretty much dominated. Although this boat hasn't been able to overhaul their rivals for the majority of the leg, just as we got into that light patch today, now they seem to be breaking clear. For any eagle-eyed viewers, you will notice that the two foils on the left and the right are different shapes. They're carrying a newer generation foil and an older generation foil, having damaged one of them and getting permission to use the older one. But as I say, right now it's conventional sailing, keeping the sails pulling and keeping the boat on course. Thomas Riant as the skipper, standing in the cockpit, looking behind, and the view behind will be of 11th Hour Racing. Still a little ways off, and I'm sure that Charlie Enright and the rest of the crew on board the American boat will be watching very carefully to see what happens with the breeze for this French team over the next 5-10 minutes, because that's all the time that's going to be required for them to sail through the finish line. The slop and chop in the bay still there, the conditions that we saw it testing the VO65s as they came into the finish line, with the light winds and the sail flopping against the breeze. But Linked Out on the reach, sailing down and zeroing in on that finish line. So let's just have a quick look at the tracker, and then let's just see some geography and see where we are, and just get a sense of how close the finish line is. And 11th Hour Racing, well, you can see that it's certainly not in 11th Hour Racing's favour there, most notably the speeds. Before we came on air, 11th Hour Racing were going a little faster than Linked Out. That's no longer the case. It's Bureau Valet behind, also pretty much matching speed. So again, we don't expect any big upsets from them. And then behind these three boats, we have Coram still chasing up behind. But in the meanwhile, we're going to stay with Linked Out and 11th Hour Racing as they come into the line. And unless that speed from 11th Hour Racing gets significantly higher than the French team, This is going to be second place for Linked Out, and with it, they are going to take 4 points onto the overall leaderboard. At the moment, they are sitting very comfortably on the overall leaderboard, a joint in third place, but this is going to be a strong result that's going to see them hold on to second after offshore team Germany won the leg a few hours ago. Just watch out, because about 5 boat lengths in front of this boat, the wind is looking light. And I think they know that on board, because that is why they are adjusting sails. So Thomas easing the main sheet, I think, there, and just keeping that boat pulling. There, the main sheet's opening up on board the IMOCA 60. They will have known that the breeze is going to go light. They'll have seen all the boats ahead of them, even if not with their eyes, but they'll be able to see them on the AIS systems and even the tracker on the website. They'll have known that the boat slowed down, and just their good understanding of the weather and how the coastline can affect it, they'll know that this light wind was here waiting for them. And 11th hour racing, although some way behind, is certainly looking to pounce. That's why Thomas is just checking behind him. I'm sure a little confidence that the finish line is coming into view, but you can't take anything for granted. So Linked Out coming into the finish line, just underneath picture, that is the finish line for the VO65, the IMOCA finish line, still in front of their bows, but it should be just a minute or two to go, and the breeze unbelievably patchy just off the finish line. The position of the finish line is fixed, and the sailors are all notified about it. It's not as if the race management team can suddenly upend the finish line and move it that 500 meters into the breeze. This is where it was going to be. It would be a bit cruel now to move it at the last minute. And one small obstacle, apart from the fact that there's light winds, there is a lobster pot, what appears to be a lobster pot, right on that finishing line. Like I say, the finish line is in a fixed position, so hopefully they're going to be able to spot that lobster pot. They do have crew up on the bow, but the key thing is, with all the challenges, they are still moving. The speed is still good. Linked Out heading towards the line at a rather impressive 7 knots of boat speed. That's just about the fastest approach that we've seen. They were doing 18 knots a few hours ago, sailing in on some rather impressive breeze that the VO65s had sailed out from. Now it's their turn of the light winds, but it's significantly better than we've seen throughout today and indeed last night. So 4 boat lengths to go then for Linked Out and Thomas Riant. This is going to be a really important result, with offshore team Germany taking the win on leg 3 in the Ocean Race Europe. It is imperative that Linked Out stay within touch of them on the score sheet. They sail over the lobster pot and then just bear away to go through the line to take second place on leg 3. With it, they take 4 points, and on the overall scoreboard, still very much keeping the game alive to that all-important coastal race, with the bonus points available on Saturday. Celebrations on board for Linked Out, because this is a big surprise considering where this boat was 24 hours ago. This was looking like the leg that had really undone the team and potentially would blow their chances of winning overall, but they kept their cool. And it wasn't luck. I mean, they made a smart decision, knowing when to go offshore and knowing when to not repeat the mistakes of the other boats, using those sailing boats in front to realise what the breeze was doing and not fall into that same wind hole. So congratulations to Linked Out, and some good sailing for them. Now they're going to get that boat safely underway, and you can see in the distance, just going out of shot on the right-hand side, that is 11th hour racing. They have been unable to close down that distance, and I mean, in fact, they have been out-dragged by Linked Out. The 2 boats have been lining up over the past 8 hours, but unfortunately for the Americans, Linked Out has really had the significant edge. Well, with that boat across the finish line, like we were saying, this coastal race is becoming more and more important as the scores remain tight. So let's have a look at the overall scoreboards. They're provisional at the moment, and of course, a large chunk of them are just projected. But we're confident that 11th Hour Racing are going to be finishing this leg in 3rd place, and we're confident that Bureau Valet will be next, and then Corum in last place. So, playing with those numbers, where the boats are at the moment, this is how the scores are going to look. And with a maximum of 3 points available for the winner of the coastal race on Saturday, 11th Hour Racing Team could still very much take the win. Offshore Team Germany are on top, but realistically with only 1 point behind Linked Out. It's effectively a tie. The sad news is that for Corum and Bureau Valet, their chances of finishing on the podium in the Ocean Race Europe have evaporated at this point. Still a chance to take a race victory in the coastal race, and I'm sure they're going to be pushing hard to do it, but unfortunately the podium won't be working for them. So that's Linked Out across the finish line. Let's wind it back now to just get a full view of exactly where we're going to be. So we've got 11th Hour Racing now coming up to the finish. Bureau Valet behind. 11th Hour Racing finding some breeze. I mean, 8.2 knots, but sadly for them, just a little bit too late. It's almost a bit cruel, isn't it? Where was that 8.2 knots when you were chasing down Linked Out in front in the light winds? But there's the heli shots at the moment, and you can see the breeze that the Americans are in. You can see how this distance off from the finish line, it does look like this is the breeze at its best, and also the best angle as well. This is the right-hand shift that we've seen from a lot of the teams. And it's certainly powering the boat up. Pascal Bidigary on what appears to be, I think that's the jib sheet in his right hand, just sitting down to leeward. I cannot see anybody else in the cockpit, so I'm assuming that, yeah, the crew are forward, keeping their weight forward, and potentially, at this point, giving themselves a little bit of shade as well underneath that mainsail, because it has been an incredibly hard sun-burning leg of 30 degrees of heat and relentless humidity, and I believe it's a very nice sunny day for the sailors coming in here into Genoa. So nice if you're out on the beach, but if you're wanting a bit of a break from the heat after what, 4 long days of racing, another day of sunshine is probably not what you want. So Pascal Bidigary down on the left-hand side. I think that's Simon Fisher now coming to join him, and you can see by the ease of that code 0 just what a reach it is coming into the finish line. Not the best angle for 11th Hour Racing. They would have preferred a beat like the other teams have had, a beat where you've got to go left or you've got to go right, forces decisions to be made for the leading boat. That provides opportunities for the boat chasing to try and exploit any mistakes. But when it's a drag race like this, you simply need better breeze, or you need your opponent to really make a mistake, and it's not as if we can hope for that from Linked Out. They have sailed a really strong leg, just like 11th Hour Racing have, but unfortunately the French just getting the advantage to them, like we say, in this final 12 hours perhaps on this leg. 11th Hour Racing then coming into the finish line, and we've got a little distance to go before they come into the finish line. So I just want to go back to the tracker, and I just want to have a look at those distances, because if you haven't been following this, let's have a look at, I mean, we showed you Bureau Valet, but let's come right the way back here and have a look at Corum and just see the distances that the fleet have to make out. 11th Hour Racing are about to come through the finish line. Bureau Valet are a good ways behind at 5.5 knots, and then you've got Corum also not particularly fast. And I think one of the things that we saw in the VO65s, the boats that were trailing were significantly faster and were sort of catching up the boats in front. Doesn't look like it's going to happen for the IMOCA 60s. 11th Hour Racing, the boat closest to the finish line, is going nearly 2 knots faster than Bureau Valet. And while Corum's got a little bit more speed than that middle boat, it is certainly not enough that we can see them close down and overhaul. So we look fairly set now to have 11th Hour Racing in 3rd, Bureau Valet in 4th, and then Corum in 5th place. And like I say, that pretty much ties up the podium place. 11th Hour Racing do have a chance here. They do have a chance of still performing very strongly on the overall scoreboard and potentially taking the win. All they need to do here is just will this boat across the line. The hard work is already done. If you've been following this leg, to be fair, any result on the podium for this leg, no matter whether you had a chance to win it at certain times, any result on the podium you should be pretty happy with, because there were an awful lot of chances to lose this leg, and we saw it in the VO65s with boats leading by a good margin and then parking up and the fleet sailing round them. Really unfortunate for Sailing Poland, and Team Childhood 1 also looked really strong on the inshore line, but sadly it just didn't come true. So for 11th Hour Racing to finish here in 3rd place and keep the overall win alive, then that's pretty strong result for them. The Italian coastline just in front, and the course management ribs out in the water with also our chase boat as well. Now we're coming into what appears to be, I'm trying to think, I don't think that is the committee boat there. I think they're a good ways off that finish just yet. So I think they're just getting a bit of a welcome committee coming into the finish. And again, the breeze changes a little bit for them. A little bit of a header coming in for this last little bit. They're still doing some good speed though. Brushing 7 knots of boat speed, and there you can see just in the background going out a shot on the right, Bureau Valet behind them. So the boat's behind, close enough to see the Americans, but certainly with no time left to try and chase them down and make any difference in the closing stages of this leg. The only thing that stands between 11th Hour Racing and this finish here, and the last points for the podium finish, is just this last light wind bubble. There's no reason to make this boat work hard for it. There's no reason to make any of the teams work hard for it when they're this far apart. We know that the positions aren't really going to change, but it's sailing, and the challenges always remain all the way to the finish. One rudder-up, the windward rudder-up on 11th Hour Racing, something that's unique to the IMOCA 60s. We can't do this on the VO65s. Just an opportunity to limit the amount of drag in the water. At these speeds, you certainly don't need 2 rudders to keep the boat under control. And the whole crew now out on the side deck, keeping the weight down, putting a little bit of weight forward, just trying to find their best route through that little wind bubble coming into the line. Still got a little bit of a ways to go here to get into the finish, and their speed has dropped slightly. 5.8 knots now for 11th Hour Racing team, but far from panicking the Americans. Certainly Bureau Valet behind them is still not really putting in much speeds, and when you look at the miles between these two teams, 11th Hour Racing has done a very good job, even with Link Tao outpacing them on that final drag race. I mean, it's 10 miles or thereabouts between 11th Hour Racing and Bureau Valet, and then it's another 10 miles between Bureau Valet and Coram. So it's a good way to go. Simon Fisher standing up, looking down to leeward. Pascal Bidigary just glancing inside the boat, checking the instruments, checking that everything is set up. The computer system on board driving at the moment with the finish line coming into view. A yellow buoy that's just gone out of view behind the jib, and then the committee boat, which is just about where these guys are sailing for the moment. And Pascal just refusing to take his eyes off any opportunity to find a little bit more pace in this boat. Somebody who we've seen from all the feeds that we've been getting off the boat is, shall we say, courageously obsessed with squeezing out any last bit of speed from this boat. If you've been following the arrivals throughout the last 12 hours, you'll know that those mountains in front of 11th Hour Racing played a big part in where the breeze was for the finish for the VO65s. But now it's a different picture because the breeze has started to come round to the right. We've been expecting a bit of a thermal breeze. It's sort of natural that we would see a little bit of a sea breeze kind of coming in. It hasn't really established. It's quite humid out on the water at the moment. It doesn't fully seem like the thermal has got underway, but at least the wind direction has been pulled round to the right-hand side. So those mountains not having the same effect on the breeze. We're not quite seeing the funneling that we saw for the VO65s coming into their finish, which has meant that the IMOCA 60s, or certainly 11th Hour Racing and Linked Out, are being able to sail a much straighter line in. And indeed, you can see Linked Out just with their head sail, their code 0 filled up, just up to the finish line. It could be that they are just waiting for an escort to get into the harbour, or it could be that they're there actually to congratulate 11th Hour Racing on a pretty tight battle. Very patchy out on the water, but the finish line now 3, 4, maybe 5 boat lengths in front of 11th Hour Racing. There might be a short bear away just to get across the finish line for the American team. But as you can see, the blue flag is flying on the back of the committee boat. That shows you that the wind is there. And there's the bear away from 11th Hour Racing to sail down through the finish line. It's a 3rd place on the 3rd and final offshore leg of the Ocean Race Europe for 11th Hour Racing team. Charlie Enright, Simon Fisher, Pascal Badigary, Justin Matru and Amory keeping it very much alive for the overall victory. We are set to have a rather incredibly intense battle for that coastal race on Saturday. So as 11th Hour Racing are now through the line, let's just take one more look at the provisional scoreboard now that we know that the numbers are just that little bit more locked in for the top 3 boats. Offshore Team Germany, 14 points, Linked Out on 13, 11th Hour Racing team on 12, and with 3 points available for winning on the coastal race on Saturday. 11th Hour Racing team could see themselves at the top. Offshore Team Germany could defend that position. Indeed, Linked Out could take it, but it will be those 3 boats that are fighting for overall victory. Well, as 11th Hour Racing get themselves back into the harbour, we're going to take a little bit of a breather. It's going to be a short while before we see Bureau Valet and Coram coming into the finish, and we want to be bringing you those arrivals as they happen. So far, congratulations to the VO65s who have wrapped up the offshore legs of the Ocean Race Europe, and now 3 of our IMOCA 60s have done the same. 2 more to go, and we will be bringing you those arrivals in a little while, and we will see you soon.